story time, and today I'm going to read to you from one of my old books. This book is from 1968, so it's called Rapunzel. Once upon a time there lived a man and his wife. They had all they wanted in the world except for one thing. For many years they'd longed to have a child, but a baby was yet to be born to them. At the back of their house was a window which looked out over a beautiful garden, full of lovely flowers and fine vegetables. The garden was surrounded by a high wall. No one ever tried to climb the wall, for the garden belonged to a witch who was feared by everyone. One day, the wife stood at the window, looking down into the garden. In one of the vegetable beds, she saw some fresh green salad. It looked so tempting, she longed to eat some. Every day that followed, she looked out of the window at the fresh green salad. The more she looked at it, the more she longed to eat it, and soon she did not want anything else to eat. Her husband said, "I will climb into the witch's garden and bring you some salad." The man waited until twilight, then climbed over the high wall into the witch's garden. There he quickly gathered a handful of salad and scrambled back over the wall. His wife sat down at once and she ate the salad. It tasted even better than she had imagined. It tasted so good, by the next day she was longing for some more salad. So once more her husband climbed over the wall to fetch it for her. Waiting until twilight again, the man clambered up the wall and lowered himself into the garden, but his feet touched the ground. He nearly fell down with fright, for there stood the witch in front of him. "How dare you come into my garden?" she shouted angrily. "How dare you steal my salad?" "Oh, it was for my wife," replied the poor man. When the witch heard the man's tale, she lost her anger and took pity on him. "If what you say is true," she said, "I will let you take as much salad as you wish. If you promise me one thing, when your wife has a child, you must give it to me, and I shall treat it well and look after it like a mother." The poor man was so frightened that he agreed, and he quickly gathered an armful of salad and scuttled back to his wife. Some time later, a beautiful baby girl was born to the man and his wife. That very same day, the witch appeared. She reminded the man of his promise, and she took the child away with her. The witch named the baby Rapunzel, and as the child grew, she became the most beautiful girl in the world. When Rapunzel was 12 years old, the witch shut her up in a tower in the forest. This tower had neither a door nor a staircase, but right at the top there was one small window. When the witch came to visit Rapunzel, she stood at the foot of the tower and cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your golden hair." Rapunzel had wonderful long fine hair the colour of gold. and whenever she heard the voice of the witch, she threw her long braid of hair out of the window. It was so long that it fell right to the ground, and the witch would catch hold of the hair as if it were a rope, and then she would climb up the wall of the tower and in at the window. When Rapunzel had been in the tower for a few years, it happened that a prince rode through the forest. As he passed by the tower, he heard the sound of someone singing. The singing was so lovely that the prince stopped to listen. The song came from the top of the tower. It was Rapunzel singing to herself. The prince wanted to go into the tower to find the singer. He looked for a door, but he couldn't find one, so he rode sadly home. Yet the prince could not forget the sweet song, and he longed to see the singer. Every day he returned to the forest and stood by the tower, listening to Rapunzel singing. One day, when the prince was standing behind a tree, the witch came to the tower. He heard her say, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your golden hair." And immediately a long braid of golden hair fell down to the ground. The prince watched amazed as the witch climbed up the tower and in at the window. Well, if that is the ladder by which to enter the tower, then I too will try it, said the prince to himself. So the next day at twilight, the prince stood by the foot of the tower and cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your golden hair." Immediately the braid of hair came tumbling down and the prince climbed up. When the prince saw Rapunzel, he was overjoyed. They chatted, and he told her how for many months he'd stood outside the tower every day, listening to her sweet singing. The prince asked Rapunzel if he might come to visit her again. She replied, "Come to see me each evening, for the witch comes only during the day." So for many months the prince visited Rapunzel every evening, and they grew to love one another. After a while the prince asked Rapunzel to marry him, and she replied, "Oh, yes." Then they talked together of how Rapunzel could get out of the tower. At last, Rapunzel thought of a plan. "Every evening when you come to see me," she said to the prince, "bring a skein of silk. I shall weave the silk into a ladder. When it is long enough to reach the ground, I shall come down, and then you can carry me away on your horse." They agreed on this plan, and every night the prince bought a fresh skein of silk, and every day Rapunzel wove a little more of the ladder. During all this time, the witch knew nothing of the prince's visits to Rapunzel. Then one day, after the witch had climbed up the tower by the braid of hair, Rapunzel spoke without thinking. "How is it, good mother," she asked, "that you feel so much heavier than the prince?" Oh, in her anger, the witch seized a pair of scissors and cut off Rapunzel's beautiful hair. Then she took the poor girl away to a desert where she left her weeping. That night, the witch returned to the tower. She fastened Rapunzel's braid of hair to a hook above the window. The prince arrived and cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your golden hair." Then the witch threw the braid out of the window. The prince climbed up and found himself face to face, not with his beautiful Rapunzel, but with the angry witch. "Aha!" cried the witch. "You have come to find your lady love, but she is gone and you will never see her again." The prince did not care about anything. His only thought was he had lost his dear Rapunzel. He wandered and wandered, and at last he came to a desert where Rapunzel lived. In the distance, he heard her singing, and he knew her voice at once. Oh, she was so glad to see him. How happy Rapunzel and the prince were to be together again. Hand in hand, they made their way happily through the forest to the prince's kingdom. And there they were married amidst great rejoicing and lived happily ever after. Now, that may be a little different from the movie of Tangled, which is the story of Rapunzel. But do you know what? I've never seen Tangled, so I don't know. And my daughter always tells me it's a really good movie, Mummy. You need to see it. So maybe I'll try. But that's the original story of Rapunzel. Now, the sentence today is Rapunzel stayed up in a tower. There's a chance to use your up. Now write your name, fill in the gaps with your choice of two with your grown-up. Write your name and picture on the back, and I will look forward to seeing those. I hope you enjoyed the story of Rapunzel.